because of the instantness of social media now and that dopamine hit of the video content itself, they believe that it kind of happens overnight. I firmly don't believe that. I believe you have to deposit those goodwill aspects into things for that ROI to really show itself. And you can only fast track that through a few variables. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Video Marketers Vault podcast. For those out there who are new here, my name is Evan Andrews, and on this podcast, we talk about everything that you need to know how to infuse video into your marketing strategies, whether it be your personal brand, your professional brand, whatever it is that you're trying to do here in 2025. We want to show you how you can use video to help you get there. And on today's episode, I am joined by another one of the students that I help coach over at the coaching program that I work with, Julian Camacho. Julian, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing pretty good for what's today? We're recording this on a Wednesday. So not bad for the middle of the week. I guess it's hump day, like they say in certain parts of the country, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you joining me today, and taking the time out to do this, because I know that it is something that we are both pretty passionate about in what it is that we do. But this episode today is going to be all about building brand and brand identity here in 2025 through video content. So we're just going to jump right into it. Julian, for those out there that don't know you, take a little bit of time to introduce yourself and tell us what exactly it is that you do.
Sure. So my name is Julian Camacho, and I am the founder and creative director of Authority Video Marketing. And we specifically focus on personal brands. We create video content and testimonial-based documentaries for our clients, so that the idea and the overall concept is to build credibility and trust for all of our clients, so that inevitably when their leads and their potential clients start to research them, they don't have to do a whole lot of homework. They can just see it's all there. They can consume all of their not just their content, but like the fact that they are experts, their strategies and tips that they're very generous with through their content, so that by the time they actually do meet them, there's no question as to who is the leader in that industry. And really, they're just asking buying questions at that point.
No, totally. And you just said something there that kind of hits the nail on the head for us to kind of get us start off. But you talked about trust, or you mentioned trust, right?
Yes.
And how important video can be to you being able to build trust with what it is that you do without having to repeat yourself over and over and over and over again and feel like you're just kind of beating a dead horse, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that video can lend to such a kind of a credibility factor, part of what I think it does is it kind of humanizes the brand, whether it's business, a business brand, or like a personal brand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It does two things that almost feels like a contradiction. It humanizes them. It creates an emotional relationship through the, digitally. However, it also elevates the individual. It also makes it almost, if you do it the right way, which is kind of the system that we've built out, working on this for the past almost 12 years now on just this specific process, it celebrifies, right? If that's a word, even it turns, essentially, it does what Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and other kind of business influencers and business celebrities have been able to achieve. However you feel about them, there's an undeniability as far as their recognition. And this, I believe it comes from like this, the fact that we all grew up watching films and TV, even if it was only on a casual level, we're used to just seeing somebody, if they're on screen, if they're in a professionally produced video, suddenly we feel like they're above the average person. And, there's practical reasons for that, right? Because it does take some production, it does take some money, and it takes a certain level of success to have made it to the point where you're creating content, at least at a certain level. And so subconsciously, I believe that when we're seeing somebody on screen for the first time, and that's our first impression of them, By the time we actually speak to them on the phone or through Zoom or any kind of virtual meeting, there's a little bit of a starstruck.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but there's a little
Yeah.
bit of that feeling when the audience is talking to the person one on one, and that effect, I believe, is what bridges the gap from, oh, I know this person versus, oh, I like this person, and then that third level, oh, I trust this person.
Yeah. No, wholeheartedly. I think something too that you kind of said there that kind of struck me was, well, people connect with people at
Yes.
the end of the day, right? Like, I think about like a car commercial, for example, like when they do the slick driving,
Yeah, yeah. Through the
thing for the
mountains.
car, which that stuff can be good to like grab our attention, right? But who sells you the car? The car salesman does when you get in there, like, right? That's when you like really get over and it's like, okay, yeah, I'm buying this thing, right?
Yeah,
But you were mentioning, you said like Gary V, Grant Cardone, like the influencer, business influencer types.
yeah,
I think it's so crucial that they've done what they've done with putting their face out there as much as they do, because that's ultimately why I believe the videos are so strong for them, is because one, volume, right?
yes.
Gary V may, disagree with you in terms of like you talked about high quality video production, where he might just say, dude, just pull your camera out and start recording, right? And there's a
Yeah,
certain level to like where you stand. But I do agree with you in what you said about like the first time somebody meets you, when you put yourself on a pedestal intentionally above where they might be, you exponentially make yourself, even if you're not, look much further ahead than they might be in their particular situation, right? So I think you're exactly right there. But also, what I think the reason why video is crucial to building brand in 2025 is really because I think the consumers, they really expect it at this
yeah,
point, right?
yeah.
Nobody wants to like see your like long landing page, like of sales jargon or whatever it is to get somebody, into your ecosystem or over the hump, take the next step or whatever. If you
Yeah.
just hit them with that onslaught of video content and stay consistent and show up every day, that's going to do what a long landing page may or may not do for you in the ultimate long run, right? But the clients that you work with, what would you say that they say that the consumers that deal with them say about video and its importance in their marketing?
Absolutely. I actually want to just circle back a little bit and clarify. I think Gary Vee is actually right
Yeah.
because two things. y- You know, something is better than nothing, and I think
Mhm.
when a lot of people put too much pressure on themselves on production value, it stops them from creating and putting stuff out there and getting their word out there. The only hiccup there I see is that Gary Vee can say that because he's Gary Vee now. And he didn't
Right.
start off, he started off doing selling the wine and creating that channel on YouTube about wine. And that was, for the time, that was a full production. And
Mhm.
so by the time he started doing more viral stuff, more candid, here's my phone, I'm on the train or I'm in the car and I'm on the way to a meeting, and this is what you need to do to put your brand out there. Yeah, he can get away with that kind of thing. Will Smith and The Rock and other celebrities that have transferred over onto YouTube to create content, they can get away with that kind of thing because they're already established brand.
Yeah.
So definitely don't let the fear of coming off low rent or low production value stop you from creating content, for sure. But as I always tell my clients, is that it is 2025, and there are so many people out there. There are so many self-proclaimed influencers and so many self-proclaimed experts who are just shooting stuff on their phone, putting it out there, and frankly saturating the market a little bit. So
Sure.
we've kind of come full circle where it's like now the production value is going to help you stand apart. And to answer your next question about the people I work with, because they are usually in the consulting and speaker and you know whether it's real estate or finance, whatever high ticket items that they're usually in, whatever industry they're in, there's usually this level of, yeah, there's sort of industry leaders is kind of how I would actually phrase it. In fact, one of my long partners, Ray Perez, who is a global branding expert, this is exactly what he focuses on. He describes it as a personality driven business. So
Mm.
if you are the face of your business, do the majority of the sales in your business, and you do plan on doing a speaking circuit or releasing a book, something that points to you as an authority, then you are definitely going to want to focus on the personal brand because, like you said, the salesman doing the car is going to be way more effective than just, you know, a deep voiceover talking about good feels
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how a Subaru equals love and all these like new sort of marketing techniques that go beyond just the torque and the power steering and all the little features of it. That's never going to quite sell all the way. It's not going to make someone pull the trigger. What's going to make pull the trigger is that trust in the individual who's going to be taking care of you one way or the other.
Yeah.
And to do that, it is this sort of balance between elevating and becoming the authority and industry leader while also being a human and connecting and being able to feel like, you know what, I could hang out with this person. We could have a beer. We could actually
Yeah.
discuss.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
it's a
No.
weird thing how that's become like the thing that's going to separate between buying or not buying, but it is a big part of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I saw a piece of content the other day that was talking about it looked at the followers of like Apple versus the followers of the CEO of Apple. And he's
Mm,
got more than the actual brand does. And that's just because people are attracted to people. But
every time.
in doing video content, I think what holds a lot of people back, whether it's for a personal brand aspect or a professional brand, whatever it might be, a
Yeah.
lot of people just don't know where to start. And I think every, video business, video production company, videographer, whatever you are, whatever level you're at, right? You kind of have your your niche in what not necessarily who you serve, but how you serve them, like what you actually make. And you kind of, I think, alluded to you do a lot of like storytelling, brand film, kind of things like that in what it is that you do. And that's one of the things, and that's one of the places that I always tell everybody should start. You should
Yeah.
have some sort, no matter what it is. Again, if you're a professional service, personal brand, whatever you're doing, you should have some sort of story driven narrative that helps you tell the story of it's the I call it the pull behind the curtain, right?
Mm,
Where it's like
that's
you just
great.
let people into what it is that you do, why you breathe the air that you breathe, why you think the way that you think,
Yeah.
and just open up that possibility for connection.
Totally. Absolutely. In fact, um, circling back to the idea of connecting with the individual
Mm,
versus the faceless business. Um, Quick little anecdote about how, Wendy's, right? Dave Thomas. So he was like this lovely, like grandfather kind of vibe, and he would always be the one in the commercials, and he was the face of the business. Rest in peace, Dave Thomas. And what's interesting is that when he started blowing up in the, I believe, late 70s, early 80s, or could be mid 80s, an interesting thing happened. And a lot of people don't know this is that Wendy's was started to take a huge chunk of the market share. And then McDonald's, who was the undeniable king of the fast food burger, was like, whoa, we gotta watch out because
mhm,
this he's coming for us. And at this point, we're so big, we can't afford to lose even, a few percentages. And so that's when they invented Ronald McDonald.
mm,
It was after Wendy's. And now they have an individual, fictional character, of course, but a mascot, some kind of person that people can identify with McDonald's.
yeah,
And so it's an interesting thing where it's like even the big boys, even the big, multi-billion-dollar brands recognize, that how important it is to have some kind of entity
yeah,
that people can focus on.
yeah,
And to answer your question about, where's a good place to start? Um, you know, there's a lot of debate on this because I do believe that once people start to know what industry you're in and what services you provide and what benefits those services provide, then they're interested in perhaps your story, the origin, how you got started. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of business owners who start to kind of delve into um, video marketing and video and content creation overall. Um, One mistake I do see is that they get too soon into their story. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people just don't care. A lot of them kind of just want, the benefit. What's in it for me?
mhm,
And especially other business owners, right? So if you're a business owner and you're looking to acquire some kind of business, whether it is video marketing or any kind of marketing, they really are looking for that ROI. And so, um, in my opinion, the best way to get started with content, and also it coincidentally helps you get over perhaps any kind of shyness or some kind of stage fright, which is super common when you're first starting to create content. And we all go through it a little bit. Just at some point, you live with it.
Oh yeah.
I think the best way to do it is by just being in service. I always tell people, a lot of my clients, when it comes to those first initial video content, it's like, what are the biggest pet peeves or what are the biggest like myths that you see about your industry? Like if it's a lawyer, they're talking about how lawyers can't be trusted or they're evil, they're so, whatever it is, whatever is that we think, or like contractors, right? A lot of
Sure.
them have that stigma of not finishing the job, not properly establishing a budget or the timeline and sticking to it. And
Yeah.
so, a great way to put yourself out there, get over your stage fright, and uh, build your audience is to start being super generous with whatever you think your trade secrets are. The
Yeah.
truth is, if you give away everything that makes you like special individual, obviously not to the granular detail, but just enough so that people feel like, wow, that's oh, so that's how you do it, or oh, I didn't know that. And if they walk away with that kind of feeling, the trust is absolutely inevitable. It's incidental to you just being genuine. If you have an issue with your plumbing, it actually might be this or whatever it is. Or if you have that weird sounds coming from your car, but it sounds like a scraping sound, you might want to check. Little free nuggets like that
Yeah.
are going to build your trust. They're going to make you focus on the thing that you're actually passionate about and not talking about yourself, right? It's egoless. And so
Yeah.
once you remove that factor and you give away these free, generous, uh, um, aha moments for your audience, these little like truths and my favorites are the myth busting, right? Because a lot of people
Yeah.
think, but turns out it's actually this, especially today. If you can come at it with that kind of energy and that kind of mindset, the content creates itself in terms of actual language, and people will start to gravitate towards you in the beginning just out of utility, just because they
Oh
have
yeah.
useful information now. And I think that's actually a great way to start, if you're not sure where to start your content creation journey. The important thing is to start.
Sure. No, I totally agree with you. That's kind of, I chalk that up to educational or just value content is what I call it.
That is,
Typically, we do that in the short form variety because of, like I said earlier, like what the consumers want. They want the dopamine hits of the short form content, right?
yeah,
And just showing up consistently there can have the effect, like you just mentioned, of really building that trust. What's in it for me? How can they help me? Kind of thing.
yeah.
And then another one that I do a lot of for the clients that I work with, I actually have a shoot in like a week and a half or two of doing five
Congrats.
of these things. Client testimonials,
Yes.
right? Those are huge, and I really never understood the value in them until I joined the coaching program Master Filmmaker as a student way back
Yeah.
when. I just never really thought, like, we always like subconsciously saw them in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you'll see them in the forms of TV commercials or something like that, but they
Yeah.
always, going to your point of, when you see something on TV, it seems like it's like that's not even within reach, right? So
Right.
it doesn't feel like something that ever saw myself making for somebody. But when I started getting them for my own business, I saw the value in them, and then I was able to articulate that value to other business owners. Because what are most of them? And I come from the service business standpoint, but
Yeah.
most people, what do they harp on? Can you leave me a Google review? Okay, well, those are great because they do help you on that particular platform. But
Right.
a video review of somebody taking the time out of their day to sit down and do a nice quality production in their time with you, I think that holds so much weight in getting somebody else to make a decision and working with you as well.
100%. In fact, there's three factors at play when you're doing what I call social proof. So, like third party social proof marketing, AKA testimonials. The reason why it's so effective is because if I tell you that I'm the biggest Batman fan, that's one thing. But if you see three, five other people, possibly people in the industry itself, right? Comic book writers, actors, if they tell you that, no, listen, I've worked with them all, but Julian, he is the biggest Batman fan. And I don't know if you can tell the background here, but I got plenty of Batman memorabilia. I got a Dark Knight poster in the background. So subconsciously, there's some stuff that's proving the point. But if someone else, if a third party says, one of my favorite, it's not practical in the business, but just in movies, When you have two rivals, when you have two people who don't like each other, and then one of them says something, and the one's like, "Damn, I hate to admit it, but he's right."
Yeah.
when you have that, when you have that moment, it's like that's it. There's no more conversation.
Yeah.
This is now a fact, and
Yeah.
now you have multiple people, multiple sources reporting on this thing. Now, when you said about video is also true because sadly, I do believe that this country and this world is becoming more and more illiterate. We don't have time to read, and when we do, our comprehension's not great. And frankly, I think the next couple generations are going to prove that they're developing like now like this video screen like paper or like this like really thin like screen like material that could
Mm,
essentially create videos everywhere and there'd be no actual need to read because right it takes us like 5 to 10 minutes to read like a 2 page article but it takes us literally 2 minutes to digest some information. So there's
right.
also a time aspect, not just a production value. And then the other thing you mentioned about Google reviews, that reminded me, um YouTube is owned by Google.
True.
And so by the sheer fact of uploading, whether it's a testimonial or your own short form content to YouTube, Google actually rewards you by providing a natural SEO and getting
Yep.
you closer to page one. So there's a
Yep.
whole bunch of different um, side benefits from creating video marketing. But the truth is, it's exactly what you said. When you have a video testimonial versus a written testimonial, the understanding from those watching it is that this person took the time to get with the service provider to give a testimonial, just a statement of fact that these were the benefits that I received by working with this person, and these are the kinds of people who should be working with this person, and this is why you should be working with this person so they can provide X, Y, Z. And so when someone goes through that trouble, that time, and creates that content, people understand it subconsciously when they watch the video versus reading a review that was probably done in about 2 minutes on their phone after the fact with something usually generic. Because that's the other thing. You shouldn't rely on the copywriting of your
Yeah.
client to do something compelling.
Well, now with, ChatGPT, you just never know. Like,
Oh
hey,
yeah,
write me a review response for this thing. I had a great time or whatever. You just never know.
AI
Um,
in general. We want to make sure the people we're watching are actually real people, which sadly
which
that's
we're honestly even fighting some of that battle with video today,
yeah. That's
right?
what I'm saying. The
And
line is
and all of
blurring.
those aspects, but I still think we're in the early stages of that where you can feasibly tell like what's real, what's not. I
It's
think
the eyes, it's the hands.
just the skin texture
It's
and
the skin
tone, like
texture,
yeah.
and there's, like, this constant shifting kinda thing.
Yep,
Like,
yep, yep.
even, like, my parents who are boomers, they'll watch an anime, and, like, my dad would be like, "Yeah, she's pretty, but something's not right," and I'm just like, "Yeah, that's the uncanny valley, dad."
Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it.
Yeah.
Uh, well, so the last kind of, point that I wanna make in kinda rounding out the episode today here, Julian, is, there's a lot of skepticism around, like, what even gets a business owner or somebody that's an entrepreneur or whatever into actually making video content. And you kind of mentioned it earlier where, they want an ROI, but there's a lot of skepticism around ROI, but I don't know if you have any particular, adage to that. I mean, I think everybody they're definitely titled to their own opinion of when it comes to ROI. I mean, I think ROI is also definitely on this big long spectrum.
Yes.
I think because of the instantness of social media now and that dopamine hit of the video content itself, they believe that it kind of happens overnight. I firmly don't believe that. I believe you have to like deposit those goodwill aspects into things for that ROI to really show itself. And you can only fast track that through a few variables. But I don't know what you have to say about ROI
Yeah.
skepticism and the people you've talked to.
Yeah, so a lot of people definitely wanna cut corners, and they want the results now because, that's what I mean, they became business owners so they don't have to deal with their fate in the hands of a boss, of a company, and, that's so there's a certain self-reliance mindset, and with that self-reliance, they recognize more than anybody else, I find, that, time equals money, and so
Mhm.
uh, uh, this notion of like, oh, I put in I invest this much, and therefore I should get this much back. And ultimately they will. But the reason why video is so effective in building that trust and credibility is that a lot of it feels like evidence. And the
Mm.
truth is, if you want to build that trust, it does take time. You don't propose on a first date. And so and so it's the same exact notion where your audience wants to make sure that you are who you say you are. And so they're going to go back and watch your previous. Let's say they watch a great video. What will
Mhm.
the next step usually is to check out your page even before
Yep.
subscribing to you. They can check out your page, and they're going to see just how long you've been posting. And if they see like 3 or 5 videos on your grid, that's not gonna give them the same effect that if they see like an endless scroll of not
Yep.
just your face talking, but of course your clients giving testimonials, maybe some kind of like um, thumbnail notion of your actual business, whether it's construction, whether it's plumbing, whether it's real estate investment, whether it's finance, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They want to see that you've been in it for a while, and they're not going to go back and check out your business and see when you actually incorporated and all that. No,
Sure.
they're almost gonna assume, and again, incorrectly, of course, but that's the world we live in. They might even assume that you started your business on the day that you started your first content, like
Yeah.
your first
Yeah.
video content. It is a fallacy, but it's one that I'm surprised by a lot of smart, educated people just reach just because they're not familiar with the medium. Maybe they're a little bit older and aren't quite not 100% on how social media works, but there are certain prejudices that you just can't fight. And I just say, don't bother, just leverage it. So
Yeah.
if you start creating content, I always tell people for organic content, not including ads, of course, because that is how you can
Speed it up.
sort of
Yeah.
speed up the process a little bit. It does require a little bit more money up front. And so if you
Mhm.
are looking for just leveraging your organic content, I always tell people get ready for at least a 1 to 2 year journey before you really start seeing some of the fruit. However, though, once you start reaching that point, and if you are consistent, and
Mhm.
if your content does go beyond just kind of ego driven content and just more generous with value content, as you mentioned, if you do that, the momentum increases exponentially because not only are people who are your potential leads going to watch you, people who know your leads are going to watch you. More importantly, future strategic partnerships can start, joint venture opportunities
Right. Yeah.
start to arise that was never available to you before because you weren't the go-to person. You weren't the industry leader. You didn't have all the social proof. And now that you do, you start getting invited to events, possibly invited to certain panels and start speaking on behalf of your industry. And then once you start reaching that level of status, you get prep. So it all starts to snowball, right?
Yeah.
Prep opportunities, possibly guest starring on certain radio shows or podcasts, just like this one. And so once you start that journey and you start creating the content, you're almost like earning your way to the spotlight. Where now, not only will you get more clients, and not only will you get higher level of clients, you can actually start working with less people because now you're charging more.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
once you're the go-to person, you start getting recommendations, and eventually you can start turning jobs down because you know that you have bigger ones lined up. And when you get to that point, you're the belle of the ball.
Yeah.
Business in your hands, and then of course you can start leveraging it for possibly new businesses and scaling and hiring other people, creating courses, all kinds of like new intellectual property based opportunities start to arise once people see you as the leader, as the authority, thanks to the content.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think a lot of, you know, again, I harken back to service businesses because that's who I like to
Sure.
help. But I don't even ever think that a service business ever thought that they could potentially have, like you mentioned, like a program or a
Oh
course
yeah.
or like some extra other bit of revenue stream that
Yes.
can come from just the longevity of being in business,
Yes.
documenting what you've been able to do and being able to showcase those results. They don't even think about that, right? And it's something that I definitely know is very, very popular now. A lot of
Yeah.
people, I think, try to do it a little too quickly, but it is definitely something that I know in the future is going to be. I mean, you're going to walk outside and just get smacked in the face with it all the time. Like your neighbor's going to say, "Did you see that I got this course on that?" It's just going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So,
And it's a fascinating thing. I have a client in the HVAC business.
Yeah.
He is up in North California. He's doing extremely well. It's kind of a legacy. He's third generation,
Mm.
and now he's creating a course for other HVAC experts throughout the country outside of his market, and he's doing speaking engagements at trade shows.
Wow.
And now, all his pictures before were him in his jumpsuit, doing the job as a service, and now he's wearing three-piece suits because he has to honor the audience. And now he's reframing his personal brand to be that more of an expert type of a business celebrity who gets invited to all these things as a speaker. And so, like, yeah, there are, and he never dreamed ever of being possible with that until we started doing his content creation. Literally 6 months in, he was invited because they loved his content so much, and how generous he was with his information. So in the
Wow.
service industry, whatever industry you're in, never underestimate what's between the ears. You have a unique intellectual property, an experience, and an expertise that nobody else has. And if you can leverage that, so you can create an impact on other people in your industry or other clients, it's really a powerful thing. It's something that goes towards something that goes beyond just business. And I do believe it starts building towards legacy, which is something
Yeah,
that
man.
a lot of people, especially when they're younger, don't think about, but it's a real thing. And I always tell people pain is temporary, but film is forever. So make it
Ooh.
count.
Yeah, dude. No, I definitely like that one. I'll probably steal that one from you. But
Do it, please, please. I want
but
people to be used to the fact that, look, I know this is a long day and we're not being very comfortable right now, but I promise you in the long term, you're going to be happy to look back on this, especially when, you start getting up there in age.
oh, for sure, man. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode, Julian. I really appreciate you for taking the time out to be able to do this with me today.
Thanks for having.
Let everybody out there know. I'll put it in the description of these show notes and everything. But let everybody out there know where they can get in contact with you real quick. And then like I said, I'll include notes in links down below for you.
Absolutely. Anybody can reach me on my actual personal website, juliancamacho360.com. But they can also check out the actual business on authorityvideomarketing.com and check out some of the work that I've done. And you can have me on my socials. You can even email or WhatsApp me directly. I'm an open book and ready to connect with anybody who might be interested.
Awesome, Julian. Well, I again appreciate you for taking the time out to do this today. And until next time, everybody, if you got this far, make sure you like and subscribe. Share this with somebody that's a business owner that's trying to build a personal brand, whatever they might be trying to do for themselves. Make sure you share this with them because they'll probably get some value out of it as well. And until we see you on the next episode, peace out.
Bye.